Right, quick show of hands, who's a recruiter in the room? So, what do we want from a placement? We want happy candidates and we want happy employers. So I want for you to take a few moments to think about the candidate journey and to remind yourself what that candidate journey is. Employers are selective about the recruitment agency they use because of the impact they can have on the candidate journey. No one wants a negative candidate experience. And these days, as we've already touched on, it's the employer's opportunity to show their company's brand as an employer and as a company. Before we go any further, you'll want to know and to establish whether I know what I'm talking about. I've been on all three sides of the table: an employer, the candidate, and a recruiter. After 20 years as senior HR positions, I'm now a HR consultant, but I started as a recruiter at one of the big high street agencies. So going back to the candidate journey, you've got a role, you advertise it. What steps does the candidate take in their decision to apply? From role awareness to interest, from application to hopefully interview, offer and placement. But we know it's not a linear journey. How many of your registered candidates are actively looking for better opportunity, and how many passive candidates will drop out along the way? As a recruiter, you know that you need to think bigger if you want to be noticed from the rest, am I right? You have to expand your reach, get attention and maximise your exposure. This is where you need to nurture your candidate pool. You might post about industry stats, company news, best place to work details. You might give candidates advice on improving their own skills, cover your social media angles as we've talked about, do networking, email your pool, hold recruiting events, not to mention newsletters, webinars, employee stories, target job alerts, and breathe. Candidates want to know who their recruiter is, who you are, who you deal with, and what you can do for them. They're looking for relevancy, transparency, efficiency, and personalisation. Think about it, in 6 years' time, 75% of the global workforce will be millennials, so you need to consider how you're going to communicate with them, which brings us on to communication. 47% of respondents in a recent study rated a lack of communication as one of the biggest turn-offs. So make sure you have a clear focus on how you communicate with your candidates. How many job seekers would take a job with a company with a bad reputation? But what about the reputation of recruitment agencies and consultants? Unfortunately, you can be on a bit of an uphill struggle here. That was a slide that shows when you search on Google on what recruitment agencies are, but people think all IT people are geeks, all accountants are boring, all salespeople are dodgy and all HR people are evil, so don't worry about it. That's just my weekend get-up. I'll tell you a really quick story. I was registered with an agency who contacted me about an interview for a job that was £15,000 less than what I was currently on, so no thank you. The same agency then contacted me as a potential client. No, that's a lesson in what happens when you provide a less than beneficial candidate experience. So think about what you want to convey to the candidate about yourself and to the employer about yourself. The relationship build, as we've talked about, and the reputation build. Think about your company's values and what type of people you work with. Let's return back to the candidates. They want to know from your client what a career might look like with them, and does the employer doing match with what they're doing in their speciality or field? What might they work on in the business and how will they grow with the business? What's the culture of the company and what do their employees say about it? So what's out there on Indeed and Glassdoor? At the application stage, they're going to be thinking about how well they match the job spec, how they can stand out, what's the hiring process, how the package compares to the job that they're currently in and the jobs that they're applying for. So if things have gone right, you get to the selection stage where your candidate's going to be asking you who's going to be interviewing them, how long will the process take, and when can they expect feedback. This is not a time to neglect the communication. Many candidates invest a lot of time in the interview process, travelling to the interview, taking time off work, planning the interview, their questions, their presentations and assessment centres that we touched on. In the study that I mentioned, 62% of respondents rated a lack of feedback as one of the biggest turn-offs about the process. So finally you get to the hire and onboarding stage and your job's over, right? Wrong. Your candidate is still looking for answers and they feel nervous. They've made that huge leap of faith from one employer to another, and they're going to wonder, what training do I get? Where do I get information? Who do I ask? Will my colleagues like me? How do I share my experience of working here? Where are the toilets and when can I go for lunch? This may not seem like your job, but you can help. They may not all have a warm, friendly, knowledgeable, and frankly marvellous HR person on hand to help them with their onboarding. So do what you can, because remember what we said, we're looking for a happy candidate and a happy employer. Thank you.